Welcome back, everybody. You are listening to SeeThroughPanel, a comic book discussion and review podcast. My name is Cole Harvey. I am here with Fahed Rahman.
Hello, everyone. And today we're going to be reviewing In by Will McPhail. Will McPhail is a writer and cartoonist from Lancashire. He lives in Edinburgh. His work has appeared in The New Yorker and has won him the Reuben Awards for the Cartoon of the Years. And for the past 2 years running, he has attracted a social media following of more than 100,000. He's also been published in Private Eye and The New Statesman, and was the winner of British Cartoonist Young Cartoonist of the Year in 2013. In is his debut graphic novel, and is an intimate and accessible, smart commentary on modern life and a joyful celebration of being human. It's about Nick, who is a illustrator isolated by his tendency to observe rather than participate in life. So this was one of my choices. We found it on NetGalley, so thank you to NetGalley for providing an advanced review copy. So I'll just ask you, Cole, what were your kind of initial thoughts on the book?
So I didn't know anything about it going in. Fahed actually just told me the title and the artist. So I looked up him. I saw his little strips he does for the New Yorker. They're hilarious. I really like his style. But going in, I really had no expectations. And I'm just gonna say, shut it down. No one needs to make comics anymore. This thing is a masterpiece. I absolutely love it. If it doesn't get an Eisner this year, I will cut my own arm off. It's ridiculously good.
It is. I mean, I think you. So when I messaged Cole, I said we've got to basically review this book. It is absolutely phenomenal. I think it's. I think from this point in, we kind of have to put the spoiler warning on, because it's really difficult to talk about why the book is so good without kind of going quite heavily into the plot details and the method in which he tells the story. But if you want to stop listening now, just go out and buy the book. I believe it's going to be published on the 13th of May, 2021. Please buy the book. It's superb. So let's talk a little bit about the story. So it's about Nick, and one of the things that I really liked was that initial kind of prelude where he's at the swimming pool. What were your thoughts about kind of like how that was all set up?
That was a hell of a way to open. So I didn't know what this was going in, and I didn't know anything at all, even after the first 5 pages, because it's just him talking about how when he used to go to the swimming pool as a kid, he loved to go down the toilet bowl slide. We had one of those when I was a kid too, and he liked that because it was like a moment of isolation in just this cesspool of children, and it's very it kind of definitely shows you that we're dealing with a character here that's a bit reserved, or has a bit of trouble showing his emotions, but it also it's telling, because it shows you this guy's oddball humor and his oddball way of conveying feelings through these weird metaphors and jokes.
Yeah, the one thing that immediately grabbed me in the opening couple of pages is the way that he draws eyes. It's kind of, he's got a really expressive way of drawing eyes where they're kind of like they pop open, wide open, and it's just like these pinprick pupils, and it just, the way he kind of does subtle things with the eyes was the thing that immediately grabbed me in those opening couple of pages.
Yeah, that was the first thing. When there's some kids sitting inside the toilet bowl slide while he's going down it, and it's almost like a horror movie reveal. They're just like wide-eyed staring at him like owls almost. That honestly was a little frightening, even though I know it's probably like some 10-year-old kids.
Yeah, it was kind of like, it was the book is hilarious. It's got kind of a lot of, I think I've read it 2 or 3 times now, and like the second and third time through, there was that subtle gags in the background that I picked up that I didn't pick up initially. And yeah, it's exactly what you think is kind of. He does a lot of weird, awkward moments with kind of the eyes, and he's got quite clean, simple line work. Sorry, um, so that's the other thing kind of I enjoyed about the art style. From then on, we get introduced to like Nick as an adult and kind of the way that he's living his life at the moment. I just yeah, what did you think? How did you find Nick as an adult? It's quite a just juxtaposition to the way he was as a child.
For the first at least 30 to 50 pages, I considered him to be a sociopath. His first the first interaction you get with adult Nick is him saying he needs a good bar to be sat in, not because he's sad, because a sad man being sad in a sad bar is a phenomenon that he has heard of and would very much like to play at for an evening, which is a very fucked up thing to say and do. But I mean, this is also the start of the visual gags with the names of the bars in the coffee shops. So the
Yes.
first bar he goes to is the Your Friends Have Kids bar, and it says weaponized self-awareness and cocktails. And that at that point I was already laughing my ass off, and that's the
Yeah.
first page after the title page.
Yeah. It's kind of he's very much. Yes, it's interesting what you said about him being like a sociopath or a psychopath because rereading that now I can kind of see where you're coming from with that. It's kind of very much what's the name of the main character in American Psycho? It's very much well, this is what other people do, so I should kind of maybe try and do this as well, so I can experience some kind of like genuine human emotion.
He does have some Patrick Bateman vibes. That's exactly
Yes,
right.
yes,
Without the murder,
without
just
the
to be
murder.
clear.
Yeah, like just the gag in the bar where he's asking for a drink, and he ends up with like a really effeminate cocktail. And
Yeah.
I just kind of like he's kind of Will's mastery of kind of these visual gags, the way that he's able to animate um, the characters in each frame of the page is just absolutely kind of wonderful. I'm just looking at a panel where he's kind of looking back at the beer that he's bought from the
Yeah.
bar, and it's so funny. It's so funny.
God, he's great at the acting, and he's really good, I think, at knowing where to place his speech bubbles, his lettering. It
Yes.
adds to the timing of the jokes. So he's mastered a lot of humor comics do this, but the silent panel between the jokes, he
Yeah.
uses that a ton, and then as well as just the placing of the lettering really adds to the impact of the jokes and the timing of it.
Yeah. And then from there on, we meet uh, the which I think is maybe the weakest part of the weakest part of the comic is we meet the love interest and Ren, and they've got a very kind of funny, humorous relationship as well.
Yeah, they're honestly both they have that very quirky humor, but yeah, they're both on the page, it's like you can't stop reading. It's just so funny and interesting and a kind of I want to say realistic, but these people are honestly it's so funny and back and forth that it's hard for me to believe that two people would be this would click like this comically immediately, but
Yeah.
yeah, they're like the most interesting when they're together. That's the most interesting parts of this book.
Yeah, I slightly disagree with you on that one. I think it's definitely a really interesting, engaging relationship. I just felt Ren occasionally fell into that. Not fell in. She kind of came close to that line of being a magic pixie girl. That kind of like this strange woman who's kind of gonna swear all the man's problems. She doesn't quite do that in the book. It's the book's a little bit more intelligent than that, but it kind of for me kind of skirted that line a little bit. But their relationship is really charming and
Yeah, very
lovely.
much.
Yeah.
I can see where you're coming from with that. Um, I think I might have leaned that way if she had a little less independent dialogue. Kind of, she there's a lot of stuff when she's talking about how she's doing her own life stuff and she can't deal with this right now, and how they several times she just says how their relationship really isn't anything serious and stuff like that. So I kind of just I felt like that was a realistic touch for an adult who has a life dealing with this kind of
Yeah,
scenario.
yeah, yeah. I think that's definitely a fair point. Where do you think this story takes place? Because I couldn't figure out whether it was in England or if it is in the United States. Because to me, a lot of the architecture looked like it
Hmm.
was like in the United States, but they've got pound signs and stuff. So I was really, yeah, I was a bit confused. I don't know what you felt about that.
I wondered the exact same thing. I thought it was in the U.S. for the beginning until, yeah, there was some pound signs, and then he calls. I didn't even know, um, like the nationality of Nick.
Yeah,
But he calls his mom Mum. So I was
yeah,
like, is this in London or I don't know where we are. I guess it doesn't really matter, but
yeah.
it's interesting.
It is yeah, it is interesting, kind of like because the architecture definitely looks like the United States. It looks like maybe a New York or a, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, something like that. Um, then we kind of slowly get more introduced to uh, Nick's life from there, and then I think basically the inciting incident of the book takes place. I think kind of let's see, 30, 40. When does he break it? When does his toilet bowl break? Because for me, that's the inciting incident.
It's right after he sleeps with Ren.
Oh, that's such a funny sequence.
The
It's such a
stage play,
yeah, the stage play is so funny.
that was so clever. Basically their date, they're going on a date and you just see a stage and the curtains pull back and it's them acting out eating at a table and then them acting out taking an Uber and then them having sex in very just odd positions and then they take a naked bow and the curtains close.
Yeah, it's kind of sort of cleverness that what's the name of that musical that didn't win the Oscars a couple of years ago, La La Land. Is kind
Oh,
of
yep.
that's kind of what La La Land kind of aspires to be in terms of its visual sort of story. Is very very clever, so funny.
God, I love that. Yeah. But then, yeah, right after that is when the toilet bowl breaks.
Yeah, so for me, that's the inciting. I don't know where you think. So that's maybe what, 60 pages in. Like the rest of it's
God,
kind
yeah.
of yeah, it's kind of I don't know, set up really to kind of introduce us to Nick and what his world is like, and then toilet bowl thing happens.
Yeah, I would agree, that was the inciting incident. Because before that, you're like, I'm into this story. It's clever, it's funny, but what is it about? Like,
Yeah, exactly. And then he speaks to a plumber, and then that's where kind of everything changes. So the artwork is black and white, and then he speaks to this plumber, and he just tries to have. So Nick is very much like me. I'm very uncomfortable making small talk with practical men who've come around
yeah.
to fix to fix things. I don't know how you react around him, but it's just kind of like standing there awkwardly, and then he just reaches out to him, and then everything changes.
Yeah, and that's the first moment you see color in this book, which was just, I had just assumed it was going to be black and white the whole time. And he says, I want to make a connection with the man in my bathroom. And then, yeah, he kind of just opens up and says something meaningful to the man, and the man says something meaningful back. And then full, full splash page of Nick just on a mountain in full color.
Yeah, it's. Do you want to talk a little bit about kind of the coloring and the art style that Will's used to kind of so basically the mountain represents the inner life, the inner mind of the plumber. So do you want to talk a little bit about kind of like the coloring and
Yes.
all the
Um,
way he lays out those sequences?
Yeah, definitely. It's so prior to this, I guess we haven't talked much about the art. It's a very somewhere between cartoony and realistic. Like right in the middle, I would say he's got some cartoony facial expressions, but it's all black and white, kind of like washy. So there's some texture there, but it's mostly just black and white figure drawings, and then, um, and it's all you're just seeing regular day life stuff. And then in this page, we cut to a very painterly colored, just beautiful mountain landscape scene. And his color work is, I don't really have words for it. It's so it's so nicely done that I honestly want a full color graphic novel from him. But it's basically just this very, I can't tell if it's digital paints or if it's real paints or what he's doing because I'm not an artist. But um, it's very warm colors, and he switches between those like really light blues and light like oranges and stuff. And for each time that this happens after, just blew me away. This type of scene happens a couple more times, and it is jaw dropping. I spend at least 5 or 6 minutes per page when it's colored like this.
Yeah, it is stunning in the literal meaning of the word. I was stunned the first time. Sorry, I was stunned the first time that transition happened. I was just like, "Whoa, this is going somewhere else. It's turning
Yeah.
into a very different, very different story." I don't know what your reaction to that was.
Yeah, it was incredible. Yeah, this is when I was hooked. Like I would have continued to read it regardless, but when this happened, my pace doubled to reading this thing because it's almost like they before each time this happens, they look each other in the eye, and the person who he's talking to, they finally have irises and they're
Yeah,
colored, and then that's like that color on their eyes is almost like a portal to just a world of more color. And that's kind of how Nick is seeing it too, I think, because he's never really experienced meaningful dialogue with anyone.
yeah. I completely agree with that. And then, kind of what happens to Nick afterwards, that he tries with various different people to kind of recapture that sense of connection that he had with the plumber. So I think he talks to his neighbors, and I think he fails a couple of times. I think he tries with his sister, but him and his sister don't really have that sort of close knit, tight relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes on kind of. I think he even tries with Ren as well, doesn't he? At one point, and that's where that conversation kind of like she's busy being a doctor and saving people's lives, and
Yeah,
isn't in the I suppose you're right. Kind of the relationship with Ren kind of does happen on her terms.
yeah,
Really, she kind of like she's the one who kind of the instigates every time that they make contact with each other. There's that very funny scene in the on the train where he Nick gets told off for sketching a woman, and then kind of that Ren is just lying there, kind of like, yeah, draw me like a French woman, sort of thing, which is a very funny gag.
it was. I honestly thought that was in his head because it was so ridiculous that he just looks up and she's laying across the booth of this train. Oh, that was great.
Yeah, yeah, and then he kind of babysits his nephew, and this for me, apart from the inside thing that happens towards the end of the book, this is my favorite inside the mind sequence, because like it's just the he's absolutely terrified. He's looking around, and these tiny terrified potato cannibal type people. It's just yeah, it's just kind of both scary and funny, and yeah,
Yeah, that was. I honestly thought it was hilarious the entire time with the nephew. It's just it was very deep and very meaningful, the conversation he had with his nephew. But honestly, I was still laughing about the dialogue from before that. He's talking to him and saying, like, making up excuses why he's not always around, and then there's just his own thoughts. Just why are you lying to a 4 year old? And that's pretty much his whole character right there. Is just
yeah,
like, why are you doing this? And yeah, the scene with the little potato people dance. He's standing on an altar. He's on fire. It's so odd. It's all very psychedelic, but
Yeah,
it
it's
is.
very
And then they
funny.
start to eat him, which
Yeah,
is not great.
yeah. I think he kind of like had he had a good time, really, and kind of like
Yeah,
his him and his nephew could become really really close together. And then he, for me, the next bit with his mum, which is just really heartbreaking, kind of. Um, as kind of listeners of the podcast might know that my mum passed away not that long ago, and he has a conversation trying to connect with his mother on a deeper level, and this really it touched me. It touched me a lot. This bit, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that this particular passage of the book helped me through the grieving process with my mum, with my mum passing away. So this conversation that he kind of has, there's with his mum, there's a section where he says, uh, I'll read it out. I'm not just who I am to you, Nick. And Nick says, you're my mum. And then his mum says, no, I'm Hannah. And then that's the gateway to kind of to her inner life. And that to me is really, it was a really powerful moment.
yeah. That moment, that got my first tear of the read. That moment there.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know how to really broach this because it's a very. I feel like it's very personal for everyone that reads it, but this was. That's for the moment where it turns, and it's still funny in parts, but after this moment, it is just honestly a harrowing read for a while
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah. It's what Will has done really, um, what he's managed to do is everything up to this point is, how to say it, it's made you care about the characters through these kind of funny, poignant, touching moments. And then he kind of turns the screw and a bad thing happens. And it really, I'm sorry,
You're fine.
it was really, yeah, it was kind of unexpected, and it was also brilliant, and it really worked as well. It's kind of, what this moment reminded me of. I don't know if you're familiar with the Fresh Prince of Bel Air.
I am.
Yeah. So there's throughout the series of Fresh Prince of Bel Air, it's usually a light-hearted, funny TV show, but there's one moment where Will's father leaves him, and he breaks down in tears, kind of talking to Uncle Phil about what he's going to achieve without his dad, and they just it's all bravado, and then he breaks down crying, saying why doesn't he want me? It was, for me, this moment in reminded me of that. It's kind of like, okay, there's a lot of funny light-hearted stuff, but you care about these characters. You only want the best for them, and then something like this happens.
Yeah, it is, and it's their conversation is conveyed through that painterly colored landscape of very fantastical things happening, but there are some moments that you can tell kind of what's happening in there, like when Ren appears in the vision, which is unexpected but has some significance if you've read the story.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, that was a very difficult part to read. You could probably tell it's something special because we're having a little trouble talking about it, but
Yeah, it's
yeah,
it's so well done, and then it's in other stories that might have been slightly exploitative, but it didn't feel like that in this. And I think I haven't read too much about it, but I think one of the things that I read was that it's slightly autobiographical. Of, I think that you can kind of tell that in kind of the term of the way he handles what happens to Will's mum.
Yeah, I think I'm assuming a lot of this is, and I would I would have to assume this part is just because it's handled so realistically and with a knowledge of how these things go.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, I wish it was the most fictional part of the graphic novel, but yeah, I would have to imagine that is a pretty personal scene for him too. And if
yes,
not, then this man is a genius. If none of this happened to this man, then he just has a window into human emotion that I do not understand.
yeah. I think he's a genius either way.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, yeah. For me, I don't think this is just kind of. If I read a better graphic novel this year, I will be thoroughly surprised because I think this is just about as good as it gets. If I read a better book this year, I'll be shocked.
I was thinking the same thing. I have read countless graphic novels and more than 10 prose novels in the last year, and this is the best thing I've read. Uh, this may be the best thing I've read in general
Yes,
because
yeah,
this thing, I think it's going to win a ton of accolades. I think it deserves them all, and I really hope then that pushes him to make more work like this. Like I'm sure you can't replicate something like this. It's very
yeah,
personal, but I'm sure he can make something else, and I would kill to read more from him.
yeah. I completely agree. There's just one more plot point that I wanna. We don't want to kind of spoil the ending, but um, too much. But there's one scene um, in the hospital, and I recognize this bit quite a lot. Kind of his sister is the one who's done all the research on the condition, and she's come prepared with all these questions, and Nick is just kind of head almost in his hands, just sitting quietly next to his mother while they're in the while they're in the hospital, and I recognize that so much. That's kind of
Mm,
like that's a very very familiar um thing to me, is because there's always someone in the family that's gone on the internet and done all the research and tried to figure out where these um if there's any treatment being developed over here or over there that could possibly work. So that's something I recognized a lot.
yeah, that I really like that scene. It just shows that this guy is drawing on his own personal history for this. So yeah, I really like that scene a lot. I don't want to talk much about it, but the way it ended was phenomenal as well.
Oh, it was so beautiful. Oh, and yeah, I cried um,
Same.
at the end, and it's it's the book is funny and sad and sweet and touching, and yeah, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
I think it transcends the medium in a way that um, really shows you what you can do with a graphic novel. And this is something that I'm going to buy one hard copy for myself, and I'm going to buy a couple for my family and friends because there are some people that like comics that I talk to that I show them stuff, and then there are others that won't touch them. But this is something that I will push, and I will say, this is not a comic book. This is the definition of high art for me. It's amazing.
It is utterly amazing, and he's so brave with his use of space as well. There's some pages that have got 9 to 10 panels on them. Then there are other pages where it's a single image or a single
Yep.
panel, and he's utterly mastered it. Yeah,
Oh
so
yeah.
I think we've talked kind of like a lot about. Is there any kind of like closing thoughts? How long have you been speaking for on this?
Half hour.
Half hour. I think that's kind of waxing lyrical about it. I feel like I've hogged a lot of the conversation. Is there
Oh no.
yeah, is there any kind of anything else that grabbed you kind of about the book?
I would just gushing about it at this point. I mean, you know where I stand at this point. This thing's incredible. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Read it when it comes out, please. There's nothing I recommend more. And also just check out this guy's Twitter or his works. Will McPhail. He just does these little one image humor comic things that are very they're smart politically and comedically. And this guy is a genius. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, this please guys, please buy this, but we will include a link in the episode notes so you can get it off Amazon. And yeah, please pre-order it. It deserves to be a bestseller. It's a wonderful, beautiful book. Thank you, Will. Thank you. Genuinely, thank you. Yeah, thank you for producing something so gorgeous, and that genuinely actually helped me. So thank you, Will. Please buy it, guys.
Definitely. Thanks, guys, for listening. Please pre-order this stuff. Check out the links in our description. We're gonna have I'll have a couple different links of places to pre-order this in case some people just don't like Amazon, and I get that. Yeah. So I think it's worth pre-ordering even if you don't.
I've set up a bookstore.org account as well, so I'll send you the link to that, Cole, so you can kind of put that link in there as well. And I just also want to thank one of our listeners, I don't know who it was, who actually purchased a Pinecast account, and that's kind of basically paid for 4 months of hosting for us. So genuinely, thank you so much for that. Please continue to put tips in our tip jar and use the Pinecast code to buy membership to Pinecast.
Yeah, and whoever used that referral code for Pinecast, hit us up and let us know what you're doing, because I would want to listen to whatever it is you got going on.
Yeah, please. Thank you, guys. So yeah, take care, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.